Hello, everybody. I want to start by apologizing for starting a little bit late this afternoon. We appreciate your patience as we work through our new technology. So thank you for joining us, those of you who are out there in the public. I would like to confirm that all the board members are on the line. This is a special meeting of the Board of Directors, East Bay Regional Park District, for April 9th. And we are starting a little late. I think it's about 11:38 at this time. And Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Director Lane,
Present.
Director Wieskamp, I'm trying to unmute you.
Hi.
I see you, Director Wieskamp, Director Eccles,
Here.
Director Coffey,
Present.
Director Wasfi,
Here.
Director Rosario,
Here.
and Director Corbett.
Here, can you also tell us members are with us today?
Yes. District Council Victor, General Manager Doyle, Deputy General Manager Ana Alvarez, AGM Johnson, AGM Ocker, Lance Breed, Mary Mattingly, AGM O'Connor, Chief Chiobaro, Eric Fuller, Juliana Shermer, Alice Kenner, Dave Mason, Kip Walsh, Jim Tallarico. Have I missed anyone?
AGM Kelchner, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. AGM Kelchner, Alan Love. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you, Maria, very much, everybody, for joining us. We are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Eccles, would you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
The flag should be up in just a second, I believe.
It's up.
Oh, is it? Okay, good. I can't see it. Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Someday.
Thank you all very much. Our regular meeting today is being held in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive order, which does allow board members to participate remotely during our stay-at-home orders. We are also providing live audio streaming and have provided the public the opportunity to submit written comments as part of public comments, and also to call in and leave a voice message. We did have a deadline of yesterday so that all public comments that were being submitted could be made and prepared and available for board members to read, and board members have had an opportunity to read those public comments. If anyone listening cares to submit additional public comments, we welcome them. You can either call in and your comments will be transcribed, or you can email the clerk of the board, Yolanda Burial Knight, and she will ensure that those comments are made a part of the record and made available for the board to read. And Madam Clerk, could you please, all these instructions are on our agendas and posted on the website, but
Yes.
Madam Clerk, could you please just say your email address real quickly for those that are listening?
Yes, Madam President. My email address is ybarial, that's Y, B as in boy, ARIAL, @ebparks.org. The phone number to call for a voice message is area code 510-544-2016.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, members, board members, have you had an opportunity to look at the, oh wait, let's do this first. Is everybody clear on the process for today?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to put this up so I can see you all. There you are. Everybody is okay on the process for today? All right, have you all had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda?
Yes.
A motion to approve the agenda is in order.
So move.
Moved by Director Weiskamp and seconded by Director Rosario. All those in favor, I will call the roll. Director Weiskamp,
Aye.
Director Lane,
Aye.
Director Coffey,
Aye.
Director Rosario,
Aye.
Director Waspy,
Aye.
Director Eccles,
Aye.
Corbett, aye. Our agenda is adopted. And the first item we have on the agenda for today, business before the board, General Manager is going to give us an update on the East Bay Regional Park District and how we are dealing with the COVID-19 situation and, addressing the public health emergency. Thank you, Mr. GM. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, President Corbett, members of the board, and those listening in or staff who is here today. We are in very, very challenging times. We've never faced anything like this before. The district is lucky it has one mission, not on the front line of health and medical emergencies, but we do have an important mission for the public. It is our sole purpose to provide parks and to manage them safely and to provide safe work space for the public and particularly for the staff who are out there doing their best to manage with less staff and changing environment every day. As the board's very aware, we've had both stay at home, stay in shelter orders from the governor of California. We've had two of those, one, the original, and the second addressing directly the state park system and closing of beaches and parking lots while the state parks themselves remain open. The challenge that we continue to have is trying to provide a safe work environment and a safe recreation environment under very, very difficult conditions. We all have a role to play in this COVID-19 emergency. And the staff I know is struggling to try to provide the opportunity for people to get outside while still adhering to the frequently changing health orders. We are adhering to both the letter and the intent of all the health orders to date by providing outdoor space, but being able to close areas of picnic areas, activities, buildings where people gather. This has proven to be very challenging for both public safety and our staff. And we appeal to the public to recognize the difficulty in their own safety and the safety of our staff. We're asking them to please stay home and do not visit busy parks, but you can still walk on trails. But the best thing to do right now is to stay at home. We know that this is a temporary situation, but temporary is being defined as a rolling change from April now into May. And the most recent order has those restrictions in place until the 3rd of May. I would anticipate that will be in fact extended, that the shelter in place order will be extended, but I can't tell you for how long. We are bending the curve and we need to flatten that curve and be a part of that success. I would like, this morning, we received yesterday a letter from Contra Costa County's health agency in coordination with Alameda County's health agency. And we would like to have our health liaison, Alice Kinner, to read that into the record today. She has been coordinating with both the EOC at the district, the county, and the health departments. Alice is a very critical member of our human relations team. So Alice, if you can do that, I think it's a very important letter and has a lot of clarifications and better understood coming from them directly than interpreted by any of us. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so this is entitled Health Officer Guidance for Parks as an Essential Service During COVID-19 Pandemic, dated April 8th, 2020. East Bay Regional Park District, dear Board President, Director Ellen Corbett. The Association of Bay Area Health Officers, together with their legal county councils, have acknowledged the essential role of parks during the COVID-19 pandemic and included specific legal language in the shelter-in-place order to allow for the public to engage in the health benefits of parks while still following physical distancing measures to decrease community transmission of the novel coronavirus. This also means that park staff or disaster service workers that may be requested to continue their essential work or possibly be reassigned to different essential work. Example, healthcare, childcare for healthcare workers like in San Francisco or other emergent needs. As local public health experts, we feel it is important to continue providing guidance to all essential sectors of society, supporting the public's well-being during this prolonged emergency that is likely to continue for months to years. While we understand that different counties and park districts may place varied restrictions to decrease crowding, in Contra Costa County, in close partnership with Alameda County's interim health officer, Dr. Erica Pond, we aim to continue working in close coordination with the East Bay Regional Park District to ensure parks stay open with the dual goals of 1, minimizing transmission of communicable disease to staff and the public, and 2, safeguarding essential activities that are crucial for the mental, emotional, and physical health of our community members. We have and will continue to provide guidance, training, and protocols to all sectors, e.g., education, transportation, parks. Over the past few weeks, we have provided such guidance to EBRPD management. Restroom and trash maintenance should be continued for essential services to promote hygiene and sanitation. There is no additional risk to these everyday tasks for other venues, restroom and trash maintenance at grocery stores, pharmacies, etc. The same personal protective and disinfecting measures recommended by the Centers for Disease are sufficient. There is a national shortage of PPE, personal protective equipment, that must be reserved for higher risk, longer duration, closer proximity interactions. Example, healthcare workers doing procedures with COVID positive individuals. Disposable gloves, access to soap and water or hand sanitizer, washable clothing, coveralls, outdoor suits or gowns, and cloth face coverings are sufficient for park staff engaging in restroom and trash maintenance or brief engagements with the public. We do not recommend requiring N95 masks or other highly specialized PPE for park staff, although individuals may choose to personally acquire and utilize additional PPE. We have provided similar guidance to full-time trash collectors and sanitation workers in our county that continue to provide these essential services to the public. Closing parks come at some cost. Never before in human history has a call for prolonged shelter in place overlapped with our 21st century industrialized world reality. Most people spend 90% of their lifetime in enclosed spaces. Social distancing strategies may worsen the mental health and economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly among the least economically and socially stable. Social distancing measures have in the past exacerbated issues of personal conflict, domestic violence, and even child abuse. We are unfortunately already seeing a rise in domestic violence. Parks have always been a community-based resource to alleviate these types of stressors. Exposure to nature has been shown in adults to improve adaptation to stress in cross-sectional and experimental studies. Nearby nature can buffer the effect of poverty on cardiovascular disease and mortality in adults, an effect postulated to be through the stress relief over the lifespan. In children, even when adjusted for income, stressors have a smaller deleterious effect on mental health when children live in more green and natural settings, supporting the development of important protective strategies that enhance resilience. Parks can be the antidote to excessive screen time and sedentariness, which worsen obesity and chronic disease. Parks promote physical activity, which can be key to the long-term mental and physical health of youth and elderly populations. Parks allow for time, which may allow people to feel less isolated even when they are not outdoors to socialize. Like other elements of the built environment, access to the outdoors and to nature is not equitably distributed in the United States. Low income and minority neighborhoods often have less tree cover and fewer parks near their homes, while affluent populations have access to the nature found in their homes or neighborhoods. Low income populations are less likely to, which only exacerbates the impact park closures will have on health equity. While we support messaging around no destination recreation, stay within your county, go to local parks, we are not recommending a mileage limit within our county. As public health professionals who fully support the necessity of the shelter in place orders in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, we also believe that access to nature is an essential component of modern life. We seek to strike a balance between park access over the short and long run and the physical distancing currently necessary to stop transmission. Pursuant to Section 120-175 of the California Health and Safety Code, the health officer of Contra Costa County in our March 31st order included clear guidelines about which park components are not allowed for social distancing. Playgrounds, dog parks, public picnic areas, and similar recreational areas must be closed to the public use. Use of shared public recreational facilities such as golf courses, tennis and basketball courts, pools, and rock walls must be closed for recreational use. Sports requiring people to share a ball or other equipment must be limited to the people in the same household. However, we intentionally maintained general use of parks and trails as an essential service. We have worked with EBRPD management to create a menu of strategies to further limit crowding, which can be strengthened and loosened over time. Example, informational awareness, parking modifications, staggered access. We hope to continue our partnership to make healthy parks for healthy people part of our pandemic response. Sincerely. And it's signed by both the public health officer of Contra Costa County as well as the deputy public health officer.
Thank you, Alice. I think I want to be clear that the district has not agreed to open restrooms until we have the proper amount of staffing available and further clarity on the safety. We take very seriously the recommendations and direction of the health professionals. That's their job. But at this time, we are not prepared to open restrooms. Thank you. Mute.
Director Lane.
Thank you. Thank you for reading the entire letter. I have a question about the letter. It's wonderful they acknowledge the importance of parks. It does say guidance at the top. So does this have a level of enforcement from the health director, or this is a recommendation?
This is the protocols and the recommendations of the local health agencies, and it is across multi-counties, and it is consistent with the governor's orders as well. Guidance.
Other directors? Anyone else want to weigh in? I have a few comments. I don't really know where to start. I appreciate very much that we do have health directors who are giving us guidance and who are very concerned about the health and well-being of the communities we serve, physical health and mental health. I do have to say that some of this letter appears to be written in a bit of a vacuum because, our parks are being very well used at this time. And I am concerned about the additional impacts on our parks and our staff as individuals are put in situation, our workers, to clean up even additional amounts of trash, manage people and be in situations, confrontational situations where they have to tell people that they can't use certain parts of our facilities. And in addition to that, we're asking our staff to do things they normally wouldn't have to do and put themselves in situations. So as we are directed to keep the parks open and provide a healthy outlet for folks, I just would hope that our health folks think about the impacts on our parks and our staff and try to figure out some way to support us. Even though it's not our job to enforce social distancing, other park users do believe that it is. And there just should be some clarity on that too. So I just have to say I'm extremely concerned. I think this letter was written with all goodwill, but I just would hope that when these letters are written, people think about the reaction to the action that they're requesting. That's all I ask, that we sort of think of the bigger picture and how it impacts staff and what we were asking our staff to do. So it's a tough balance, trying to make sure our parks are open and accessible, and also making sure with this additional pressure on our staff who are also under stay-at-home orders, and all the impacts that those have on people and families. I just hope that our health officials think about that other piece.
And President Corbett, just want to be clear that we have taken a more conservative approach on restrooms. All San Francisco restrooms, Santa Clara restrooms are being serviced as the parks are open there. And we have, with an abundance of caution and working with the staff and our labor, trying to get staff back in and get these directions clear. So we are being more conservative, but the board should be clear that the health departments are meeting weekly with park and rec agencies throughout the Bay Area and with the other health department directors throughout the Bay Area. And they are paying very, very serious attention to this issue and the safety.
Yes, and I do appreciate.
It's not a health order. It was a county order. It was a park and recreation county administrator order. Santa Clara, with very big system, has all of its parks and restrooms open, I believe. So does Mid Peninsula Open Space District. So does Santa Clara Open Space Authority. There are many other agencies that still have parks open. The majority of parks are restricted on picnic areas, facilities, et cetera, as per the health order.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Director Lane.
Excuse me,
Thank you, Al.
Santa Cruz has also ordered its beach. Obviously, it's very big on tourism in Santa Cruz County, and their parks are now closed as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting how some communities are closing their parks and other communities are telling people from other areas not to come to their parks.
Right.
That pushes crowds in various different directions.
And President Corbett, in the letter, it wasn't emphasized, but the major concern that we've repeatedly heard was not wanting people to travel out of their areas. Some counties have put in a 5-mile restriction for their parks. I don't know how that's enforceable, but that is a requirement. But it's really a very strong, unanimous concern by all the counties, 7 county health agencies, that people don't travel out of their areas. That just increases the potential. And that's one of the reasons why they want to see some park facilities left open so people aren't pushed out into other areas.
Thank you. Any other comments by board members? Director Lane.
Well, in reading this letter, it asserts that our park employees are disaster service workers. Is that within their realm to establish that that's the status of our employees?
Mr. GM? I think we may have lost the GM. I don't see him.
I'm back.
Oh, there. Okay.
So I'll ask Carol Victor to respond to that designation. It is a designation that we're looking at right now very carefully and legally.
General Counsel, do you have a comment?
Yes, and I can expand on this further with the board, but our employees are disaster service workers under our emergency operation plan and under state law. But we have always said our employees will never be put into a job that they're not trained to do. But in terms of being called to work for another agency, we would, if there were that kind of mutual aid request, we would always ask for volunteers. And there's been no such request to this agency to provide services outside of the East Bay Regional Park District.
Then how do we interpret what they've said in this letter?
So I think I think they're just pointing out that our employees are disaster service workers. I do not think that the letter was intending to say that they can conscript our employees in any way. And we can ask for clarification on that point and report back to the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments, anyone? Yes, Director Eccles.
Yeah, just quickly to say that I appreciate and continue to support the more conservative approach that our park district is taking with respect to our employees. This is guidance just because they think it might be safe for folks to go and clean bathrooms without a high level of PPE. That doesn't mean that we have to do that. And so I would appreciate an ongoing conservative approach in the interest of the safety of our employees.
I agree with that. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, Mr. General Manager, do you have anything else to close out that item?
No, I think that's our current update. Obviously, we've been having more frequent board meetings to try to stay up with this, and appreciate the board's commitment to the public to do that, as well as the staff here to do that. We really do appreciate everybody's effort. We're all trying to work together and do our part, and our part is parks, and to do that as safely as possible. I am hopeful that this is a temporary situation, and we're now looking at May 3rd as the shelter-in-place order. As I mentioned earlier, it most likely will be in for a longer time, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And the next item you'll be discussing on temporary closures, I just want to emphasize that this is a temporary measure. They are not going to be the permanent status of our park system.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Manager, and thank you for your optimism as well. And again, thank you for everyone who's working so hard to, balance these very difficult challenges. Before we go to the next item, Mr. General Manager, I just want to go back and ask the clerk. Madam Clerk, I'm asking about public comments. Did we receive any public comments?
We did not receive any public comments on this item. Were you talking about just public comments in general?
Yes.
Oh, yes. We did receive about 7 public comments before the deadline and several after.
Are you able to, so as I've emphasized, and I'll ask the board to weigh in on this, board received all of these comments last night. And board members, show of hands, everybody had a chance to read them and review them. The board has read and reviewed all the comments that we've received. So those of you who submitted comments, thank you very much. They have been read. And in the record, we will have a record so people will be able to see who has submitted them. Do you want to just read the names just real quickly of who submitted them, just so we have that?
Yes, Madam President.
Just will be fine.
Yeah, Susan Elliott of Castro Valley, Eric Kim, Sarah Miracle Kite, Park Supervisor at Anthony Chabot and Leona Canyon, Jennifer Anderson of Oakland, Ross Mitchell, Oakland resident, Tony Pang, and then this morning, we received 2, one from Janet Benz, B-E-N-Z, and Dushyant Pota.
And I believe those were sent to us directly as well.
Yeah, those came in this morning.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, and people out there in the public, if you have additional public comments, you can continue to send them in or call them in. They will be transcribed or copied and made available to the board members to read and will be made part of the record. Thank you very much. And did I
Director
see, yes, Ms.
Director
Victor?
Corbett, there was one more from Meadow Darcy that came in this
Okay,
morning.
thank you very much. All right, and I've read that. I think most board members have read that one too. Yes, they're all saying yes.
Madam
Yes.
President,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
could I get a copy of that email from Meadow Darcy for the record? I don't have that.
Okay, I know I received it personally. I think other board members did too. I will make sure, and I'm sure the general counsel will make sure you have a copy of that for the record as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Everybody's still on the line. Everybody's good. We're going to go to item B.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you very much. We obviously have a critical decision to make regarding the impact of one of the most popular days in all parks across the nation, but particularly our history in the East Bay Regional Park District. Easter weekend and Easter Sunday is a traditional time for people to get out in spring, roll eggs around, and have picnics. As the board already knows, by the order of the governor and the health agencies, picnic areas, group gatherings, facilities, drinking fountains, and now for us, restrooms and drinking fountains are off limits, are closed. And we really, I will go so far as to beg the public to please stay home this weekend. But in light of the very possible potential of a lot of people showing up, anyway, we have additional recommendations to you for temporary weekend, this weekend, Easter weekend closures. And we also, I want to be clear that we have received a letter on closing Mission Peak Regional Preserve from the city manager of Fremont. We will read that later. It addresses longer than this weekend. The only action before the board today, to be clear, is temporary weekend closures for Easter weekend. This is a very big challenge for us. Obviously, a lot of our parks do not have gates. A lot of our parks have roads going through them, but we are really asking people to help us, help themselves, help their families be safe by staying home this weekend. The parks are not available for Easter picnics. They aren't anyway. That is not new. But because of the concern of our staff and of our ability to manage crowds and maintain social distancing, we have recommendations today for additional ratcheting up of closures of parking lots and parks this weekend, in some cases, full parks. We know that that's a very big disappointment and inconvenience for the public. We are in an emergency. We are in a health, life or death emergency, and we need the public's help and support. And we also need to give the district staff a break from these crowds when we already have limited staffing. And we are already seeing, as the board knows very well, that people are still not picking up and taking their garbage home. This is just walkers. They're not picking up after their dogs. In some cases, they're not putting their dogs on leash if we've asked. So the more that we see behavior that is not adhering to their own safety regulations by our health departments and state, we are going to have to close more facilities. And we believe that the potential of having major crowds in the parks that are open and accessible to picnic areas is going to be extremely difficult to manage if we leave them open. The board certainly has the authority to close all parks. The district's direction that we have received from the board to date has been to keep as much open as feasible. That doesn't mean that we have the ability to patrol every inch of the park district and enforce everything. We are asking for public compliance, and we will be out there as best we can with public safety to require that the public adhere to these rules. And I would like Assistant General Manager Jim O'Connor, with the assistance of Tony Chaburo, Chief and Assistant General Manager of Public Safety, to make this presentation and to listen to your questions and answer them to the best of our ability. Again, this is not something we've ever been faced with. We do close parks for wind events. We do close parks for fire, but those are very visible things that we can address. The virus and the potential of infection and infectious spread and crowd control is a far different issue when you have massive crowds in the park. So I will, at your agreement, I will turn this over to Assistant General Manager Jim O'Connor and Assistant General Manager Tony Chaburo.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon, President Corbett, members of the board. I'm going to do a screen share with you to show a list of parks that we're proposing. Just take me 1 second here. Madam President, do you see the list on your screen?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me give you some context. As all of you know, we currently have several parks closed. There's 11 hard closures plus several other partial closures throughout the district. And those have been in response to crowding. And those decisions have been a combination of operations staff and public safety staff making recommendations to the executive team here at the Park District based on trying to reduce chances for social distancing violations. At Coyote Hills Regional Park, all parking lots would be closed. At Lake Chabot, the main parking lot would be closed. At Black Diamond Mines, all of the parking lots would be closed. At Garin Regional Park, all parking lots would be closed. And more recently, we are going to close the Stanford staging area, recommending the Stanford staging area be closed. But the remainder of that park would remain open, including the Ohlone College entrance to Mission Peak Original Preserve. In addition, staff are going to be closing certain parking areas adjacent to closed picnic areas in different parks throughout the system in order to what the chief of the police chief Chioburo uses the term reduce patron load in those areas and the potential for social distancing violations. This recommendation is a combination of public safety and operations staff working together with park supervisors to come up with, find a balance between keeping parks open to the greatest extent possible, but also reducing those social distancing challenges that we have out there. And with that, Chief Chioburo and myself are available for any questions you may have.
You guys, please don't mute me. AGM O'Connor, can we first of all go back to the screen where I can see everybody? And then number two, has Dry Creek already been closed in addition to Garin?
That is correct. The Myers Garden is closed.
And the Dry Creek parking lot. Okay, thank you. Board members, please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Director Wieskamp.
I would like a really clear explanation of hard closure and how we manage that.
So hard closure at this point really means closing just the parking lots at any one park. Very few parks can be completely closed in our system. There's very few examples of that. Ardenwood is one park that we can completely close, but most of our parks have multiple entrances, walk-in entrances, and therefore are not completely closed in that context.
Well, I saw the term after Mission Peak.
Director Wieskamp, could you repeat your question?
I would like to understand how you are going to achieve, you're going to close the parking lot at Stanford and leave Ohlone open, but I'm trying to understand how that is going to be managed. Is it us doing it, or is it the city of Fremont?
So The plan at this point would be to bring in somewhat like we did at Point Isabel, where we bring in some temporary fencing. Because as you know, that entrance now only has a pipe gate, which still allows for people to walk past that. So we would harden that entrance, meaning we put some temporary fencing up there along with signage.
Okay.
So the parking lot is closed and also the entrance to the park is closed at that point?
That's correct.
The trail is closed.
Correct. If we were to leave the area open for walk-ins, obviously that would still allow access from the neighborhood.
All right. And so can you please explain what parts of Mission Peak are open? That part will be closed. Other parts will be open.
Well, the request from the city is to close the parking area and access from Stanford. They've also requested that the trails that are adjacent or directly accessed from Stanford Avenue also be closed. This closure would be similar to what we did in 2016 for the after hours restrictions, meaning we have a gate at the top, a cattle gate that we can close off up near the McClure residence at the top. And so the Peak Meadow Trail would be closed along with several trails that lead down to the Stanford Avenue. So that's the request of the city that's before you today.
But I'm asking you your recommendation, what part is closed and what part is open? I think you've clarified what part is closed.
Right.
Are there access areas to Mission Peak open under your
Absolutely.
recommendation? Could you please delineate those?
Absolutely. So the entrance to Mission Peak from Ohlone College off of Pine Street would still remain open. And also the entrance from Sunol Wilderness side, although Sunol Wilderness itself is closed. So that trail from Calaveras Road would be open also.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Director Lane.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the work that our staff has been doing on this, and the say that I think as park districts go, we have worked our hardest to allow the public to get into the parks. So the Easter weekend for these areas for me is one that I am glad it's only the weekend. Thank you.
Other board members, Director Eccles and then Director Coffey.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd also like to thank the team for putting together a thoughtful proposal. And it is sad to limit parks on Easter weekend, but we don't want people to get sick out there either. So I think this is an appropriate response. I did have a question just operationally. I know we have been keeping 2 rangers in each park, and I understood that in anticipation of crowds on Easter weekend, in some cases 4 rangers have been asked to report, and there was a concern about, will they be able to maintain their social distancing? So with these closures, with these closed parking lots, will there still be instances where 4 rangers will need to manage it, or are we back down to 2? I'm just interested in, because obviously we're trying to have safety, but at the same time protect our staff.
The plan for the weekend depends on whether or not we get approval on additional closures. Obviously, with more areas closed, that reduces somewhat of the staffing load. Although, obviously, as I said previously, we cannot close some of these parks completely to access. So that's going to be a challenge.
Did that answer your question?
Well, sort of. So I guess it sounds like there will be still some instances, even with the parking closed. So for example, if the main parking is closed at a park, I appreciate people can walk in, people can still get there. We still need staffing. I definitely agree with that. I was just wondering if this would solve the problem of having more staff and the difficulty of achieving social distancing among our staff. Would we still have to ramp up to 4 rangers in those instances?
Certainly, closing additional parks will reduce the need for additional staffing, and we're cognizant of that. So we will, in some cases, stagger staff. There's a morning shifts and an evening shift that helps offset some of the opportunities for them to interact at the work site. So we are cognizant of that, and we're trying to reduce that opportunity as much as possible. But there will be some increased staffing, but for the most part, closing additional parks will help reduce that.
Thank you.
Director Coffey?
I don't see a single park closure on that list. Am I right, Jim?
In what way do you mean?
We're not closing those parks.
Oh.
We're closing parking lots.
Correct. Yeah.
In 3 instances, staging areas. And in 1 instance, a hard close to a staging area, which means people can't access the park from there.
Correct. The parks would still be open for walk-in access, but we're trying to discourage additional people coming to those parks. Correct.
By closing parking lots and staging areas. And here's what happens, and I saw it in the last 2 rounds. The park district will put out a press release. The park district will put out a statement on social media, on Facebook, and on our web page. And the park district statement lead with the headlines, Park District announces additional closures.
Yes.
Period. You know, and inevitably what happens, to speaking on behalf of our park users, is they all just read that and assume we've closed all the parks or we're closing additional parks. And for days and days after that, what ensues on social media and in terms of questions we're all getting is, gee, is that trail closed? Is access to my neighbor, you know, from my neighborhood up, does this mean I can't take my dog for a walk up the trail? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It creates these kind of statements we put out, additional closures, creates a lot of confusion. And
it's not, it's exactly what Director Coffey said. It's the same methods we have would be used again with the specifics as we can have. Again, our goal is to discourage use. We're not trying to encourage use right now. We're trying to discourage that use. So we don't want to drive people to other areas. We want to encourage people to stay home this weekend, take care of their families, and our parks will be open again soon.
All right, thank you very much. What I'm looking for is something, you know, sort of not every single detail, but sort of generally how we get the message out. And maybe we can do that at the end of comments by board members on this item. So I'll call on you in a minute, Carol, if
We'll do that.
If you're good. Okay, so Director Rosario?
Yes. I was torn about either closing for the holiday or keeping it open, and I think knowing that whether you close the park or not, it's going to require the same amount of staff, and because like it's been mentioned, we cannot. There's no real hard closures of any park. So I think staff has come up with a good recommendation, and I think it's workable. And we're several weeks into our restrictions. I think hopefully people will listen. But I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Director Rosario. Any other comments by board members? Yes, Director Waspy.
Well, I support this reluctantly. I have always felt that parks are a refuge for folks, and I think they should stay open under these circumstances which we're going to face on Easter. I think this is a prudent way of picking the parks we expect and in the past have found are going to be heavily used and I think improperly used, unfortunately. I do find an incredible problem with Stanford Avenue. The city of Fremont has requested that we do this. In every one of our discussions, we've always said, we can say you can't picnic here, although there's no picnicking that occurs at Mission Peak or at Stanford Avenue, it's hiking. We've encouraged people to come and hike. So the city of Fremont has requested this. I would be interested in knowing if there's an operational plan, and I'm hoping that we don't, of let's put up a fence But Fremont's requesting that. I hope they're going to be the ones that enforce it, because I personally think it's unenforceable. And I think it's going to be a public relations nightmare. And I hope we can stay away from that, literally stay away from it, and let them handle it. They made the request.
Director Waspy, if I may respond to that, we have made it very clear to the city on a call with the mayor, city manager, police chief, and Park and Rec director that we will bring this to the board at their request. The only thing we're going to act on today is this weekend, which still has the same problem as you referenced, and that we are not considering at this meeting any additional closure. I believe the letter, which I will have council read in a summary to the, it is a request for more than this weekend. It is a closure of the park during the COVID-19. We may have differences of opinion on how severe that crowding has been on the social distancing adherence. The problem we have, it's a small parking lot, and it is a very popular place. We have also been told that many people come from Santa Clara County, which is just down the road on the county boundary, and we really have no way of enforcing out of county closures. And I think that's a whole nother issue that the board would have to debate. But we agree that it's a problem. We have been clear, we do not have the staff resources or the police resources to patrol the traffic on that street. What we can do at their request is to close that parking lot, put up signs, direct people, as we already are, to the Ohlone College parking lot, which the college is closed, so there's not a lot of traffic there. The parking lots are open, but the college is closed. And that's what we can do. We will keep our electronic billboard at the bottom of Stanford and direct people to Ohlone and tell them that this parking area is closed. But that's the best we can do. And we are very concerned about the practicality of actually being able to address what's going to happen within the streets of the city of Fremont.
I'm going to ask for just a really brief presentation in a minute on how we're going to get the message out. And Bobby already covered part of that with the signage and the electronic signs. But I do want to ask, I just want to make one more point on the letter from Fremont, because there will be people who will be asking us, why didn't we respond directly to all the points in the letter from the city of Fremont? I just want the public to know we did just receive that letter just minutes before starting this meeting. And so board members only had an opportunity to read it very quickly before this meeting started. And as everybody knows, under the Brown Act, you work on issues that are already noticed on the agenda. And some of the items requested in the Fremont letter are not part of what's noticed on what's part of our agenda today that was noticed, which included discussion about potential additional temporary park closures. It did not include these items. So I want the public to know that so they understand why we may not be acting on some of the other items in the letter. And the letter will be available for us to act on at our next meeting, or at least our next general meeting on the 21st. So we will have more opportunity to discuss that, and it will be noticed on our agenda. As far as I believe, does that sound about right, Mr. General Manager?
That is correct, President Corbett. If the board would so desire, we're prepared to summarize that letter so people know what's there, and then we'll actually post it on the next formal agenda.
Yeah, but we can't act on it.
Summarize it. We can do that.
We can't act on it today, right? I just
No.
want people to be clear about that.
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, Director Wieskamp.
Is it appropriate for us to send a letter to the city council, city manager of Fremont, stating that we are doing at their request this closure at Stanford for this weekend with the fencing, but that we are concerned about safety and security, And how are they going to help us with it for Easter weekend?
Yes, obviously, we just, I had the phone call yesterday that would say a letter is coming requesting closure. And I again made it very clear that we don't have the resources to manage the streets, the city property. Probably for the record, it's important to note the parking lot is owned by the Park District. The city owns the majority of the face of Mission Peak. We own the top. So a lot of that area is owned by the city. The streets that accesses our city streets, and we do have the permit parking. We had actually recommended that they extend the permit parking to 7 days a week. That is not, I believe, addressed in the letter. So it certainly would be appropriate for us taking board comments today on this narrow closure of the weekend to respond back and to invite them to participate in the discussion on the 21st.
Yes, and I think the board is also asking, Mr. GM, that you be in contact with the city of Fremont, I guess right after this meeting, to find out what it is they will be offering in assistance in that neighborhood to, deal with whatever impacts occur because of the temporary closure for that day, so that we have an idea what they're going to be doing, since, as you know, we will all be hearing from people who are impacted by this.
Thank you very
People
much.
on both sides.
I will have Jim O'Connor, who's been the liaisons with the city and been talking to the city staff almost every day.
Okay.
Provide that information back to the city, and that I do think we should provide. I can't say we can get it done today, but we should provide a response in writing.
Yes.
To them, and that would be our intent.
Thank you very much. All right. Can we ask for AGM Johnson to give us just a very brief, quick, what your plans are for rollout of messaging for this weekend for the recommended temporary closures of parking lots?
Thank you, President Corbett, and good afternoon, board members. So we do have our work cut out for us because it is Thursday and we are talking about some temporary closures of parking areas starting Saturday through Sunday. But the good news is that we have a very strong press list, as well as a variety of things. So let me share with you. We have about 1,000 people on our media list, which includes social media influencers, as well as local government public information officers. And that is important so that the local community informational e-newsletters can get and have our information published. In addition to that, we have some 39,000 social media followers on our various channels. Nextdoor is one of them, and we have a reach of about 840,000 people. We expect to, of course, write the press release, send it out, have lots of media interest and coverage, have that posted on our website. We also have currently running some video and radio advertising on a variety of networks, including Telemundo, KCBS, PBS, NBC, and KTVU. And it is possible that we can get a very quick message change just for this weekend. I can't guarantee that, but that would be a hope because we're already in contract with those broadcasters. Nixle is through our public safety, and that they can certainly assist in publicizing through their channels. And then last, but certainly not least, the Regional Parks Foundation members, we have about 10,000 of them that we have direct email contact with, and we would be providing them direct information. And that does not include all the signage, of course, that would be in the parks along some of the roadways, electronic signage as well. So we have a very robust plan. Government Affairs also would be reaching out to all of the legislative offices so that the legislators that are putting out daily online newsletters, which many of them are, would also be able to help us in promoting these temporary closures of the parking areas.
AGM Johnson, I do see messages. Well, let me stop for a second. Let me take a breath here for a second and say thank you very much for that very thorough outlining of all of our options for public messaging. I do see from time to time on my own Nextdoor messaging from the Park District and from our public safety on the Park District on Nextdoor, which is also a very effective way to get the word out in neighborhoods. Will we be using Nextdoor as well?
Yes, actually, I might have run through it too fast, but I did mention Nextdoor.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
Yes, and the access would be about 840,000 users of Nextdoor throughout the East Bay counties.
Okay, my apologies if I missed that. I was probably staring at my gym to figure out what to do next. All right, thank you all very much. Board members, any questions or comments for AGM Johnson? All right, yes, Director Lane.
Well, the only thing I have is that, this is really for us to close the Easter weekend which is our biggest weekend, is a big deal. And if you could indicate in some way that just this one year, while we're having the pandemic, we ask people to have their Easter picnics at home. So we talk about it as a unique event and a one-time event.
Yes, we've been very careful with our messaging, and for this particular weekend, we will continue to be careful and apologetic, and with the expectation that, yes, we will continue to be open in future years, but even future weeks starting next week as well.
Yeah, I think it's always important to enlist our community support to say, please help us out with this. I think that's always a very positive message, and people are also always want to be helpful. So that sort of message that you have used successfully, I think, will be important too. Director Eccles.
Yeah, actually, excuse me, it's mostly been covered. I agree with that messaging, and I know Carol will do a great job. The only other thought I had is because the order specifically talks about crowding, certainly to the extent that we mention the order as well, because, this isn't just us being mean on Easter Sunday. This is like a health crisis, and there's a public health order telling us to keep parks open if we can do it with the social distancing and lack of crowding and so on and so forth. So all of that.
Absolutely. Mr. GM?
Yes, I just really think an emphasis has to be added here. And I know a lot of the public that is listening online to our live streaming, when people complain about not being able to picnic because we are closing more areas this weekend, that order has been in place for 2 weeks. No picnicking. So we are not taking away anything new as far as picnicking. That's already been a health order by the governor and by the health department. So I just really need people to hear who love their parks so much. We need them to love their parks, but they also have to love our staff and love us by picking up garbage when they're walking and their dogs. But I really think I just want to redundantly repeating 100 times that the lack of picnicking this weekend has already been decided. What we are doing is trying to remove crowding areas further, and it's a health and safety issue. Believe me, I know that this is painful for the board, it's painful for the staff to not provide this on Easter. It's the happiest day, spring, beautiful flowers in the district. As was said, this is 1 year, this is one weekend. And we do close parks and fire season when it's a high fire hazard too. So we ask the public support in this. We really need their help. It's for their own safety as well as our staff's.
That's right. I think that's the important message. We're just trying to keep people safe. We're trying to manage the situation, and we're trying to do everything we can so that this only is temporary, so that, the more we stay home, the more we practice our social distancing, the sooner we'll have an opportunity to get back to normal. So thank you. Any other comments on that item, board members? Thank you very much. I want to let the board members know we have close to a hard stop at 1 for some board members. So our next item, we have about 15 minutes to cover it. So, Mr. General Manager, item C.
Yes, this is just the issues that we have been trying to resolve today in our discussions about labor issues. We are really not having any additional recommendations except for we established a labor task force for the specific benefit of communicating directly to our labor leadership, both on the Police Association as well as Ask Me. And we have been meeting regularly. We have been sending those minutes and agendas to the board. And if the board wishes to participate in those meetings, we should appoint some board members to do that. We think that could be helpful. We want to make sure that in any way they're not an assertion that isn't factually true, or there isn't a mistake in what was stated. So I think it's very important to continue this communication directly with our labor representatives and to have the board to be able to participate where they wish.
All right, and Mr. General Manager, can you also cover item D real quickly too, so we can discuss them both together? And that is board member participation at the EOC.
Yes, the district staff, and I will let Assistant General Manager O'Connor and Assistant General Manager Chaburo represent the position of the EOC and the executive staff that are on that team. It is not the recommendation of your management to provide a non-management position at the EOC, but we are recommending that if the board wishes to drop in and participate and observe as a representative of both the management and as a representative of the union, which you were very, very supportive of on the staff, that you do that if you wish.
And I think the general counsel has comments on what sort of process that would be, or how many board members, etc. Can you guide us on that? I think you're on mute still.
Apologies. So I'll get better at that, Bob. District Council, Carol Victor. So with the EOC, the board is the ultimate policy body of the Park District, and pursuant to the Brown Act, you can make those policy decisions in an open and notice meeting. With respect to the EOC, when our plan was adopted, there was a sense that the board could have a role in the EOC. We certainly heard from the board at the last meeting that there was an interest in board members sitting in on the briefings. Just to comply with the Brown Act and have some consistency, we're recommending that you appoint 1 or 2 of your members to participate in those briefings as part of the EOC policy team.
And the task force as well, 2 members.
Excuse me. Yes, it's really up to the board how many members, if it's less than a quorum, but just for ease of scheduling and communications and to ensure that we're all as nimble as we need to be, fewer would work better if that meets the board's interest.
Okay, so I'm just going to toss this out there, and board members, you can weigh in. Based on the recommendation we have at this point, I do know that people have some very strong feelings about having additional representatives at some of these meetings, and we can address that, and we can address that at our next meeting as well. But for purposes of today and what's noticed on the agenda, I think we should discuss having my recommendation, following the recommendation we've just heard, 2 members of the board to serve on the task force and 2 members of the board to serve as observers at the EOC. I will happily, volunteer to sit on both of them. My preference is the EOC if we need more people on one or the other, but I'll gladly sit on both of them as the president. But I would also like to hear from the rest of you if you have any interest in serving or any other comments with regard to the recommendation before us, which is appointing 2 people to serve on the task force for the board and 2 people to serve as observers at the EOC. Any comments, questions, volunteers? Director Rosario?
Yes, I'm happy to serve in either or both.
All right. Anyone else? Director Waspy?
Well, I support this participation by the board members, and I would be happy to serve on either one also.
Director Coffey? Oh, you're mute. Can't hear you. There you go.
The space key wasn't working on that point. I get a sense of where the board wants to go with this, and I don't have strong objections. I've been a hospital general counsel for 30 years, and I've served in that capacity as an observer in many management, labor, operational meetings. And my experience has been, when on occasion elected hospital board members are brought into those meetings, that the participants immediately treat the audience as those elected board members, and it obstructs the free and candid flow of discussion among what is and ought to be otherwise a very operational oriented meeting. Quite literally, in our case, into the weeds. Boards are policy making, boards are goal making, and board of directors oversee operations but from a bit of a distance rather than actually getting involved in operations. So philosophically, and to be consistent with my own advice to my boards over a couple of decades, I don't think board members should be involved in what are clearly operational management meetings. And I'm afraid that it will skew the discussions and lead to, the audience being those board members. Having said all that, if we go in that direction, I would feel a lot more comfortable if Dennis Waspy and Dee Rosario were on that task force as board representatives, given their combined decades of experience in park operations, trail operations, and both of them in terms of fire services. Is just my immediate practical thought on, if we have a representative, I hope it's just one, to the EOC. I think that's a good role for the board president as a representative and liaison for the entire board. I would be comfortable with that. So that's basically where I'm at with that issue. I am open to the possibility of having, and it's not on our agenda, but having a labor rep at the EOC. I understand that there's a tension there between some of the details they get into. I would hope that somehow a reasonable approach to that participation could be understood, so it would mitigate any concerns. But I can't have this discussion of board members there without mentioning my interest in potential labor representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Coffey. Director Lane?
Thank you. I entirely agree with what Colin just said. And then in addition, what I would like to say for myself is that for me, I would like a major ratchet up in communication to the board on every level of the discussions with regard to this crisis. So I'm going to, work offline with staff to be sure that I can get all of these levels of communication. And because for me, I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Director Lane, I couldn't agree with you more. I know staff is working under trying circumstances to do, keep the park going, and at the same time developing channels of communication. When a disaster resolution is adopted, typically some power shifts to management, but the channels of communication under all models I have seen are expanded and extended. That's how it works. That's what's been tried and true. So I absolutely agree with those comments. And I do know, in addition, that our staff is working very, very hard on many, many levels of communication, some of which we've already been informed of. And we will continue to be discussing those. So thank you very much for making that really important point. Director Eccles?
So very quickly, I think in an emergency situation that communication and increased communication is absolutely critical. It's critical for safety reasons and it's critical for building trust. So I appreciate the additional steps that staff is taking to increase communication, encourage more. I don't think there can be too much communication in a situation like this. Well, maybe, but it's we're still a ways from there. I do want to also reiterate my support for having a labor representative serve on the EOC. I believe that they would bring a valuable perspective, and that is also part of being heard and having the opportunity to comment in real time for anything that's being discussed. And I think that if there is a disagreement, it doesn't have to happen there in that meeting. It can go to meet and confer at another time. But I think having that opportunity to actually observe and hear what's being said and respond in real time is important and could improve communication and also help to build trust.
Thank you very much, Director Eccles. Since we're almost running out of time, I'll just say ditto. I agree with what you just said, your sentiments as well. So board members, we've had various ideas tossed out. Would everybody be comfortable with Director Rosario and Director Waspy serving on the task force, and then myself serving on the EOC for now? We can always revisit this at our next meeting. Everybody okay? Thumbs up, everybody. D, is that okay with you too? Oh, I think D just got frozen. D? Oh, we just lost D. I have a feeling D's okay with it though. Well, we certainly have a majority of people okay with that. So that will be how we move forward. Can the folks that are involved with these various meetings please get in touch with Director Rosario Waspy and myself and let us know when the next meetings are and how we access those meetings.
Do we need to vote on that, or is it get a motion?
District Council, is that an action item or is that an appointment by the president? Can't hear you, Carol.
I think the board president has authority under our board operating guidelines, but why don't we take a motion? Since you're all here, and it can't hurt.
Okay. All those in favor of me appointing, are we really going to get that kind of precedent voting on chair appointments? Oh, well. So all those in favor of me appointing Directors Waspy and Rosario to the task force, do we need to do a roll call? Just state aye. I'll check.
Director Rosario has dropped.
Aye.
You want to have a formal motion?
Well, that's what Carol just asked for. I don't know if I think that's a good idea either. If typically the board, I am the president right now, but I would back any other board member who's president and allow them their authority to make appointments.
Yes. And the only reason I raised it was because it was on the agenda. Absolutely. It's within your authority under the board operating guidelines, and the board's discussed it. And I think you're fine.
Are you guys all okay with that? Yes. Cool.
I think Carol's advice was good, but I'm cool.
Your advice is always good. All right, everybody. Any other comments or questions? This was the last item on the agenda. Anybody else have additional questions? Director Wieskamp, and then District Council, and then GM. Director Wieskamp, please hit your mute. Oh, no. Anne, are you still there? Anne, oh, there we go. We can hear you, Anne.
I would really appreciate, and I'm sure all board members would appreciate, being kept fully informed as we go into this weekend. And if there's anything that felt we can do, let us know.
Here, here. We all agree with that, right? Yes. Yes, we really do want to be involved in, informed. We care a lot about the parks and we want to make sure we have the best weekend we can have under the circumstances for everybody to keep our public safe and to keep our staff safe. Okay, let's see. I saw another hand, I think. The clerk has a comment and then we need to hear from the district council, I believe. Yes.
Madam
Madam
President, we lost Director Rosario. He's back now, so I don't know if he heard everything that you had said.
I will repeat it. Director
Okay.
Rosario, we had a discussion about appointments to the task force and to the EOC. As the board president, I recommended that I appoint myself to the EOC and that I appoint Directors Waspy and yourself, Rosario, to the task force. And people were in agreement with that. Do you agree with that? Okay.
Yes.
And I've asked staff to get in touch with the three of us to let us know when the meetings are and how we access the meetings. Okay, very good. Okay, district council. And mute.
Sorry. So we received an email where somebody had asked a summary of the public comments. And if the board would like, I'm prepared to do so, but it's in your discretion. Director Corbett.
I would just say I will err on the side of making sure people feel that we've heard everything they've had to say. So I would say yes. And I just have to say these are trying times because all of us support public comments and access to the board, and we're doing the best we can. Hopefully we'll evolve into a model where we can have call-ins, but we're not there yet. So those of you who are writing in, we do care what you have to say. We do read your letters. And as I confirmed with the board read all letters that came in, but also we will honor your request for a brief presentation on what we received.
I have to sign off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Director Lane.
Could we hear from Bob first and then?
Bob?
Yeah, I don't have anything more to add. I just appreciate all the hard work of everyone, and we all are trying to do our part to help keep the park district going and keep people going and keep our staff going and keep you going. We know that it's a challenge. There's so much movement on communication. We're doing our best. As the board knows, we did over almost 100 pieces of communications just in the last 2 weeks to you and to the staff, and we'll continue to do that. Well, I did want to announce that we will have an online confidential ability for people to call in from the staff if they feel they're not being listened to in the field. And so that will be up and running, and I'll keep the board informed of that as well. So they have the ability to confidentially raise issues without having to feel they're in an audience or under scrutiny. And I think that's something we're very supportive of, on that transparency. And I just want to thank everyone. I wanted to be clear, did the board want us to read the Fremont letter in the record now or wait?
Put your thumb up if you want to hear it. 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up, 3 thumbs up. Colin's not with us any longer. I have read it. Has everyone else read it?
I've read it, but I would like the public to be able to know what's in that letter. They're asking us to do this.
Right. My only comment would be, is it proper to read it even though it came in past the time period for the meeting? District Council? not to put you on the spot, but can't hear you.
Mute.
Okay, there we go. District Council Carol Victor. We can read it. It's also a public document that any member of the public can request a copy of. And from what I heard from the board, you are requesting that we put it on the next agenda for formal discussion. But I do have a short summary that I can provide when I summarize the other comments that were received.
Okay, so let's hold on just for a quick second. I know some board members have to leave us. Are there any comments from the board members that have to leave at 1 before we read the public comments or the letter from Fremont?
No, thank you, Ellen. I do have to jump to another meeting, so thanks very much. Stay well, everybody.
Thank you very much, Director Eccles. Happy holidays to you.
Thank you too.
All right.
Just go ahead, but I do need to leave also.
Oh, sorry about that. I forgot. District Council, please summarize the public comments and read the Fremont letter.
So if you'll permit me, I will summarize the Fremont letter as well, because it was lengthy and we need to keep our quorum here. In terms of public comment, we had an email from Susan Elliott urging the board to close all parks for the holiday weekend. We had another email from Eric Kim asking the board to keep Mission Peak Trail open to the public. We had an email from Sarah Miracle Kite asking for direction from management and public safety regarding operations staff's role in responding to injured hikers. We had an email from Jennifer Anderson thanking the board for keeping many parks open and for the up-to-date park closure page on the website. We had an email from Ross Mitchell asking the board to close all park gates because people are traveling from outside of the East Bay to access our parks. We had an email from Tony Pang urging the board to close Mission Peak Regional Preserve. There was an email that went to the board of directors only, asking the board to clarify its position regarding wage continuance for employees unable to report to work due to COVID-19 issues. And that email was from Meadow Darcy. And then with respect to the letter from the city manager, Mark Danage of Fremont, they're requesting an immediate closure of Mission Peak Regional Preserve Trails, staging area and parking lot access from Stanford Avenue. The city is supportive of continued access from Ohlone College if social distancing is complied with. They're asking that the closure be extended to 1 week past the shelter-in-place order by the state and the county of Alameda. The list of trails they're requesting be closed is Stanford Avenue staging area and parking lot, the gate at Stanford, at the gate at the Stanford Avenue trail entrance, the Horse Heaven Trail, the Park Meadow Trail, Second View Point Mission Hill Regional Park Trail, and the Ohlone Wilderness Trail. They acknowledge in the letter the effort on the part of the city and East Bay Regional Park District to educate visitors, but they cite a lack of compliance. And they note that Stanford appears to be the preferred access to Mission Peak. They're basing this request on their own observations at Stanford, and they will schedule this request for the city council to discuss and ratify on April 14th, 2020.
So this letter hasn't been ratified by the city council yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
The city manager cites his authority under the city's emergency resolution.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to clarify that. And we will have an opportunity to have further discussion on this when this letter is discussed and noticed for discussion at our next meeting. Okay, thank you very much. And again, I want to just reiterate to people, the letter didn't get here in time to have it formally discussed as part of the agenda for this meeting. And that's why we will be discussing it at the next meeting. And we will have public information out there to help people understand what is closed at Mission Peak and what is not closed at Mission Peak temporarily this weekend. So Director Rosario, and then Director Lane, and then Director Waspy. Director Rosario?
Yes.
Oh, so
regarding-
sorry, Director Rosario, hang on just a moment. I'm so
sure.
sorry. Director Lane has to go, so she's going to make a comment.
Okay, no problem.
Oh, no, you're just saying goodbye? Okay. Have wonderful holidays, Beverly. Glad you're doing well. See you at the next meeting. Director Rosario.
Yes, regarding the issue of extending the pay, is that we can't bring that up now, but it was discussed at closed session. I don't know who that met up.
So that's not an open session discussion item, and so it's not appropriate for discussion now. But I'm concerned we've lost our quorum, so we should adjourn the meeting.
We still have 4 people.
Do we? Who?
Yes, we do. Ellen, Ann, Dennis, and Dee. That's 4.
1, 2, 3. That's only 3.
Ann is still with us. She's just not on the line.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Alrighty. Thank you for that.
So we'll put that over to a further meeting, District Council.
Yes. I mean, this is board member comments. Director Rosario certainly has the right to express an opinion on anything within the jurisdiction of the Park District. We just can't take action on it. And it may be that we like to notice things. So if employees and members of the public want to comment, they know it's going to be on the agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm good. I just
Thank you for making that point, Director Rosario. Director Wasby, did you have something to say under comments?
Yeah, my final comment would be, once again, I know we can't discuss or we've agreed to the closure of Mission Peak. I really hope we can address the issue of how, I beg your pardon? How it's forced. I think it's going to be chaos down there. And I think that, once again, I'd like to reiterate, the city of Fremont has requested us to close the park. I think the results are going to be because we've closed it, and I don't think we should be there. As I look at the city of Fremont website, they've got a virus page. Central Park, which they refer to as our most popular park, is open this weekend. They're cutting back on parking, but they're surely not doing a hard closure. So if we go down and we ask them, you've asked us to close the park, do you understand the consequences? And are you going to take care of the parking enforcement? Are you going to take care of the enforcement? If they come back and say, we're going to be really busy at Central Park, because I can only imagine what Central Park in Fremont looks like on Easter. But they haven't closed their parks. They haven't done any hard closures in their parks. And that's according to their website. So I hope we can reiterate, we're not going to do the enforcement.
And I just want to add something for clarification, not to dispute what Director Wasby just said, but as you know, in meetings like this, some people come in for certain parts of the meeting and then they don't hear other parts of the meeting. So I just want to clarify that Mission Peak is not having a hard closure on Sunday. The Stanford parking lots are, I just want to make it clear so people don't just hear part of it and think we've closed down all of Mission Peak.
Right, I apologize.
So there will be access to Mission Peak through the Ohlone area, and the Stanford parking lot will be closed, and access at Stanford will be closed for the weekend only. Do I have that right, Mr. GM and Mr. O'Connor and anyone else who's still on the phone, just to make it clear?
It is the weekend only. It is Saturday and Sunday, and it is the access, including trail access, from the Stanford Boulevard staging area.
And please check our website and watch for our public communications so people can be clear about what's open and not. And again, sorry, wasn't disputing you, Dennis. I just wanted to make sure everybody, hears what's open and what's not. Thank you.
Right.
Director Wieskamp.
Director Wasby and I may have a different perspective on Mission Peak, but I received a call last week from Ben Yee, who is now on the Planning Commission in Fremont and was our farmer, very involved, my appointee on our committee, and very involved at Mission Peak. And he said it was chaos and there were very few people paying any attention to the rules of social distancing. And I don't think that could be better this weekend. But I do agree that the city of Fremont needs to be very involved in monitoring this. They're requesting it. The neighbors who are there will request it, I guarantee you. I do not want chaos. And I just think we're all concerned that with Easter, it would be even worse than it's been. I want people to be safe, including our employees, and that includes the police, who are trying to cover the whole district. And it's not going to be an easy weekend.
Thank you very much, Director Wieskamp. Does any other board member have any comments under board comments at this point? Yes, Director Rosario.
I just wanted to thank everyone for having this additional meeting. I think it was very helpful for me and for the public as well. I just wanted to thank staff for their considerations on the park restrictions, and hopefully those will work. I think we're kind of between a rock and a hard place, and I think we've made a good attempt at our best attempt at trying to mitigate the weekend. And also, I just wanted to thank everyone for being on the conservative side as far as opening our restrooms. I don't think we should open them until we have a clear sense of what the safety guidelines are, and also that we have a steady supply of PPE and restroom supplies, toilet paper. So I'm happy for those, and also that I am advocating for for union representation at the EOC. I think it's very important, and we will have those discussions later on. So thank you very much for everyone's being on board and being attentive to the situation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I would just say in my final comments, thank you very much, Director Rosario. I also want to thank the staff for pulling this meeting together so quickly in a matter of like 24 hours or so. And thank you all for being so flexible. I know some of you had family commitments, and this is the holiday season, so it means a lot to us that you pull this all together so quickly and so thoroughly and so professionally. We've got a lot of things we're balancing right now. It's a difficult time. We're trying to do our best, and our staff is, again, I just have to say, so appreciative to be associated with the Park District. We're showing our best right now in trying to keep people healthy and happy, and so hang in there with all of us, including the public. We appreciate all of you, and we look forward to additional comments and addressing the challenges we have at our various parks. But just know we're doing our absolute best and trying to listen to all of you and address all of your concerns. It's not easy because we have various points of view, but we're absolutely doing our best. And the more we hear from you, the better we can do. So thank you. And I just want to wish everybody also happy, wonderful holidays. Enjoy your holidays at home, as the general manager said. And again, we're all working hard to make this all happen. We're going to have another special meeting next week, and the general manager and the clerk and others will let us know when that is. And we'll, of course, notice that for the public as well. And I see the clerk of the board. Do you have some technical items you wanted to jump in on? No, we're good. General manager, you may have the last word before I adjourn.
Thank you. Let us all hope that things improve. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I actually do rely on the scientists and the doctors to give us their best advice. That's their profession. But part of that advice is that there is hope. if we do flatten the curve, we will get through this, and we'll have to maintain certain safety issues. But the hope is eventually we'll get everybody back in the parks, including all of our staff.
Yes. Thank you all very much. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Wonderful holidays, everybody. Take care.